Uh,
Mr.
Hello,
Reed?
hello, can you hear me?
Oh, hi, Mr. Reed. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank
This
you
is
for
our
having me.
first housing meeting, and do you think?
Thank you very much.
You're
Well,
welcome.
first, let me share my screen with everyone. Give me one moment. Host, can I share my screen? Am I able to share my screen?
Yeah, I just made you a co-host, so you should be able to share it.
Great. There we go. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. So again, let me introduce myself. My name is Randy Reed. I am the program manager for the Black Homeownership Project, and I work with the Center for New York City Neighborhoods. And I want to thank Dante, thank Community Board 9 for allowing me to speak to give you some information about our program. So here's just an agenda of some of the things I'll be talking about this evening, just going over our mission, theory of change and goals, what we're hearing from homeowners, our 5 pilot proposals, and then we'll take some questions at the end of my presentation. Okay, so what is the Black Homeownership Project? For short, we call it BHP. And the goal of BHP seeks to increase the number of Black homeowners in the 5 boroughs and provide high quality services. BHP's goal is to connect Black homeowners to free, local, and expert housing support and services in regards to homeowner landlord support and estate planning services, foreclosure prevention, tenant landlord mediation, home repairs, maintenance, and technical service. So the Black Homeownership Project started in 2020, actually right before the pandemic happened. So with that, we started with 5 pilots, which then turned into interventions. The 5 pilots that we started with and did research on were the Down Payment Assistance Navigator, our Homeowner Landlord Services pilot, our Generation to Generation Estate Planning pilot, our Match Saving pilot, and our Pathways to Tenant Opportunity, also known as TOPA, that pilot as well, which is Tenant Opportunity to Purchase. So with that, we began doing research on those 5 pilots over the last 2 years, which ended up turning into interventions. And the overall goal of the interventions are to preserve and strengthen Black homeownership. With that, we've also done a lot of work as far as policy changes at a local level and movement building to advance system changes that moves toward housing justice to combat cycles of real estate speculation and predatory real estate activity. As far as building relationships with the community, we've really been working closely with our network partners, real estate professionals, clergy, and just members of the community, and more importantly, the homeowners. Because from the homeowners, what we do is we get what's actually happening in real time in the community. And some of the things that I mentioned, the different pilots that we have done research on and working on, these are things that we're thinking about. One of the opportunities and advantages of kind of being in the field and working with our network partners and being in the community is that they can actually also let us know what their needs are, because their needs may be different from services that we're thinking to provide at that moment, but it's an opportunity to really identify what those things are. So theory of change, who are we targeting? Well, we're targeting Black homeowners and homeowner landlords. 50% of those we're finding from our research are senior. And this is a very unique population, and particularly in New York. So I think, we're getting a lot of data, and we're trying to use that data to determine, where and who we should focus on. As far as where we're focusing in Central Brooklyn, Southeast Queens, North Bronx. So we're focusing neighborhoods like Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, Flatbush, just to name a few. And the reason why we're focusing in the Bronx, we're focusing in the North Bronx. So like Wakefield is, for example, is an area. And we're focusing on these areas because these areas have a high concentration of Black homeowners. And in some of these areas, particularly a high concentration of Black homeowners that are landlords. So that's very important and very important. Kind of what have we done and what has our impact been? Well, thus far, we've been able to educate more than 10,000 individuals. We also been able to equip individuals to our network with our network partners and to services. And we've been able to engage with almost 10 network partners. Our division actually, the program, the pilot itself began in 2020, but at the beginning of this year, the pilot transformed into an intervention. And from there, we got funding on 2 of these programs that I'll mention at the end of my presentation. And so now myself and another senior manager, we are the 2 that are tasked to get this program running and started. So I want to talk about challenges that are facing Black homeowners, some challenges that are facing Black homeowners in New York City. Obviously, there's been lots of talk about gentrification and displacement and speculation, speculative activity, higher housing prices, not as much inventory available, property taxes, specifically in our communities. What we feel like we wanted to address are the large systematic and structural issues such as deed theft, tax lien sales, and foreclosures. So these are things that we're hearing from homeowners that we are speaking to. And again, the high cost of housing, supply versus demand, a low supply for a high demand. That's why homeownership specifically in New York City is so unique. And so with this research that we're doing and with the interventions that we're having, we're really trying to, again, keep our ears to the streets, but really work with our partners and figure out creative ways to do outreach. Now being in a pandemic almost for 3 years now, to the way they engage with people has really changed. So we've had to think of new and inventive ways to reach this population. Also, in regards to climate change, costs for repairs and rehabs and retrofits and any type of technical assistance, just really identifying what those resources are and making them more readily available for homeowners in New York City. What we're hearing from people who are interested in buying a home is education, education, education. And that has been something that I have been personally tasked to do, is to find different opportunities where individuals can learn more about the 4 C's and their credit and understanding capital and down payment options and things of that nature. We have other conversations with individuals who said they felt they may have been discriminated against when getting loans. This is something else that has that is a structural issue, just with home ownership in general. We have conversations with homeowners about how they got their down payment. Did they use their savings? Did they have a trust? What options did they think about? Just even figuring out where to start with the down payment. And this also, particularly again, specifically in New York City, we found that some New Yorkers haven't really been hopeful and even thought as themselves of being homeowners. So even making that a reality and really providing a pathway for individuals who may have never considered home ownership and maybe all they thought about was renting, but just introducing new pathways and creating new opportunities for those who are interested in purchasing a home in the future. From our conversations that we've had, particularly with homeowner landlords, we found that home maintenance and upkeep has really been a big part in successfully being a homeowner landlord in New York City. Finding the right tenants, finding the right contractors for repairs. Again, a big thing, education and resources, and figuring out the best way and best practices to managing and working with tenants. So I mentioned all the proposals at the beginning of my presentation, but the two that I'll that I've mentioned already, but I'll briefly just touch on again, where we got funding for is our homeowner landlord services intervention and our generation estate planning intervention. In regards to estate planning, the purpose of that intervention, a lot of people weren't really sure what estate planning even means. And simply put, it's just a process of designating who will receive your property at the end of their life. Processing those documents. What documents do you need? Understanding wills and trusts, and healthcare proxies, and just understanding how to designate someone who will receive your assets and property at the end of life. And I think a lot of people unfortunately assume that homes will carry on without estate planning, but through our research, we're here to tell you that without estate planning, without a title, this opens up homeowners to predatory scams and deep debt, and we want to avoid that. So for us, that was something that we thought would be a big focus and would be important to homeowners. And really, we talk about generation wealth and legacy, and I think this is a really effective way to build legacy, particularly in our community. And then lastly, I'll talk about our proposal, our homeowner landlord service proposal. Again, where we are over the last 6 months, I've been engaging with homeowners just kind of throughout the COVID process to kind of get an update on their current situations. And what our job is to identify who these homeowners are, to see if they are homeowners that also have tenants. If they are, and they need assistance with any type of free housing counseling or any tenant or landlord mediation or home repairs that are related to them having a tenant, then what we can do is we can make referrals to our network partners. There are some options for landlord ambassador programs with some of our partners that we work with, and we'll connect them to those particular services based on what those particular needs are. So we've been really successful in that and trying to redirect people to let them know that there is this resource out here and help hopefully point them in the right direction. So there is a solution to their problem. Going back over the landlord services that I just talked about, our goal, again, it started as a pilot, and at that particular pilot got funded. Again, our goals are to identify tenant landlord resources, to assist with home repairs, and more importantly, we want to expand the awareness of our program. And with that, some opportunities that we have with this program are to identify new services and resources that may be helpful to tenants. In addition, we are looking at opportunities where we can do some fundraising so we can come up with some new resources that fall under this project. And as I talked about with estate planning, our overall goal for this is to increase awareness and the importance of estate planning for our LMI Black homeowners, as it is critical, again, to wealth preservation. We want to expand the capacity of our community-based organizations, and we want more visibility and coverage within our network partners, and so we can deliver estate planning service. And if there are any questions in particularly, or if you have any homeowners or any community organizations that want to know more information about what we do or possible partnerships or collaborating on any type of future activities, we can be reached at, you can check out our site, which is blackhomeownersny.org. And then we also have a hotline here, that number that we have here, if you want to connect anyone with support. And then we also have we have a BHP Black Homeownership intake form. If you go to our website, which is bhp-cnycn.org, to learn more about the Black Homeownership Program. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Does anyone have any questions? No one has any questions? Randy, you said you guys started at the beginning of the pandemic. What did you see that made you do that?
Well, we started prior to the pandemic.
Okay,
Uh,
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. So initially, the program got rolled out. I'm trying to figure what it's 2022, right? Initially, the program got rolled out near the end of 2019. I believe it was November. And it was kind of like a soft launch. And then I think about February is when they did like an official launch. And then I think in March or April, I believe it was like mid to late March is when the pandemic happened. And so we didn't realize things were going to happen like that. But the good thing about it is that prior to the pandemic, we already had relationships with our partners, with the real estate professionals, with the homeowners. So when we initially started doing our research, it just really started with having conversations and doing interviews, creating surveys, and just getting information from the individuals. And we took those stories and we aligned that with the data that our policy team compiled. And fast forward to now, here we are where we had this pilot that turned into a program. So we've made a lot of strides, but we have a lot of work to do as well.
Wow. When you talk to Black homeowners, and I know predatory, I know deed theft is still prevalent. From the time it first started to be really serious, has those numbers changed?
I can only speak from, and I don't have all the data in front of me, so I don't want to misspeak, but I can only speak from the data that we've compiled. And honestly, a lot of the data that we've gotten from like the census and some of the other organizations that we work with. And the change as far as since the pandemic, I will say that a lot of people have been affected with their jobs or not affording to pay rent, or we've had landlords who can't pay their mortgage in their building and they're forced to sell now because they've had tenants or they've had in some cases, ERAP, for example, is a program, emergency assistance program, that some landlord tenants were forced to weren't forced, but felt like they needed to take it because they had arrears from tenants who weren't already paying rent. So they took that, they signed up for the program, they got their back rent paid, but then what happens is that same tenant didn't pay rent again. So now they're in that situation all over again. So to answer your question, I think it's a little too soon to make an assessment, but I do see things happening, but they're not happening in a mass form, if that makes sense. But things are happening. I think what we really do is I think we as a community and as partners throughout this big city where homeownership is really impossible for some people. I think we need to figure out a way to be more aligned. I feel like there's a lot of different groups and organizations and people who have their best interests, but I think that we just have to find a better way to connect those dots. And I honestly don't know. I can't speak for everyone, but I don't know what that's going to take, but it's going to take some work. And I think what we're trying to really identify something that we know that's not new information, but we're putting action to the words that we're putting out here. And we're trying to do our best in this state that we're in to see who those individuals are and to find the best way to support them.
Thank you. Jay, you had a question?
Yes, I had a question for Mr. Reed or Randy. I'm not sure what you prefer to be called. But what do you think is the effect on, let's say, Black home ownership of the decreasing amount of off-street parking? So I was thinking about what's the effect? Like if somebody take somebody who's a homeowner, and if they have a house and they have, let's say, two cars, one car is maybe parked in the driveway and the other car they park in the street. Now, suddenly, let's say there's a lot of apartments that start being built, whatever it is, affordable housing market rate. But if there's not enough space on the street to have, let's say, that second car, and if you have a family that relies upon two cars, maybe an intergenerational family where, grandparents are living with, older children and everything like that. Do you think that maybe the loss of that spot to put the second car, when somebody says, I have to walk maybe 20 minutes to get home, do you think that might affect the quality of life, where maybe people say things are happening in terms of housing that I don't have a spot outside and the traffic is too much, or there's maybe 5 homeless shelters that are being built around, let's say, like Clarkson Avenue. And why should I pay $800,000, $900,000 to buy a house where I don't have a place to park, and where there's an excess of like social services where the quality of life goes down? So my question was regarding mostly the parking, because in central Brooklyn, around in Community Board 9, I see there's going to be a tremendous problem. There's not going to be a lot of parking spots where there used to be off-street parking. And I think that's going to be a problem for quality of life. And I see in the next few years, people who were in the Black community or in any community in Community Board 9 saying that the quality of life goes down because they need that parking spot for homeowners who have families and they need to drive places.
I agree with you 110%. And I mean, listen, I work for a nonprofit now, but I used to work for the city. And this is a question that I'd be asking directly to our mayor. I mean, I feel like any community you go in now, it's probably going to be a cop car or a snow plow or something from the city in my spot, and I see it every day. And I live in Harlem. I see it. I'm like, why is this bus here? This is a parking spot, and there are homes and apartments. And I do think that affects the quality of life. I think it's just the demographic. It's unfortunate. It's just the way New York is designed and set up. It's kind of like, you look, if you've been here for a long time, and I've been in New York for 20 years, so I'm not born in New York, but I'm a New Yorker. I've been here for a long time, so I've seen it change a lot. And if you've been here longer than me, I'm sure you've seen it change even more. And I don't know. Is it going to get better? I'll say it really depends. New York is New York is special in that way where you can go in one neighborhood and it could be a completely different issue. So I don't really know how to answer that question in a way where it can relate to the work that we're doing. But I agree with you that I think it's a problem and it does affect the quality of life.
And if I could just add one more thing, if I can, Randy. The zoning code, I think, should be incentivizing families, because families are many times the one who buys homes. So in the most recent zoning code, the affordable housing is incentivized for studios, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments. Studios, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom. So when it comes to 3-bedroom, which are mostly for your families, they're not there. So in my opinion, in terms of increasing home ownership, let's say for Black families, for those families who are let's say four people or more, that if they change the zoning code and they said, instead of it just being affordable housing where the incentive is for studios, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom, and if they changed it and said you have to match the amount, the 3-bedroom apartments have to copy what the city's demographic of, let's say, 4-person or more. Because on the census that I looked up at, it said that 22% around, 22% of the households are 4-person or more. That's your families. So if you
Right.
wanted to increase it, in my humble opinion, just to throw it out to you, I think there's a valid civil rights action under the civil rights in which, under familial status, in which families are being discriminated against, because the New York City zoning code is incentivizing, in the ZQA thing, studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. So if they said you need to match, you got to put in 3-bedroom apartments to match the demographic, which the census will back up, it's 22% in New York City, then you'd have 3-bedroom apartments being required. And then what you can do is then you could bring in like probably these like Nehemiah homes or something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how that works, but some sort of concept where you can give affordable housing for, for 4 persons or more. And that way you could have more families, and then that would tie in with, like, let's say, increasing Black, family home ownership, which is what your organization is part of. So just wanted to throw that out to you.
No, thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
And I took some notes. I think that's a good point. The thing that I'm thinking of, which it could be a solution to your problem, but then it could be another problem for another group of people, is that it'll be something like you go to Boston and you have permits, right? It'll be permit parking. So let's just say they had some type of permit parking that was exclusive to like families of 3 or more. Then this other group that doesn't fit into that group, I could just see it. I don't know what the solution is, but I like the way you're thinking. I think it makes sense to what we're doing. And this is good feedback, because like I said earlier in the presentation, having these conversations helps us identify things that necessarily not be in our wheelhouse, but we want to hear about different things and experiences and feedback, and this will help us kind of be more thoughtful and intentional when we're thinking about different programs or pilots to work on. So thank you.
Janice, you have a question?
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And good evening. Thank you, Randy, for your wonderful presentation about the Black homeowners, Black home ownership project. I have a couple of questions. One comment about the parking. I'm a lifelong Brooklyn resident, homeowner. No one is building Nehemiah houses anymore. No one is building low-income housing anymore. Everything seems to be in terms of high rise. One of the things that needs to happen is the AMI needs to reflect the community in which the housing is built. And the other thing is that the apartment construction and architects need to ensure that there is some level of parking inside of the apartments that are being built. If you look on Sullivan in Washington, that's a good example. They have decided to include parking. If you look at the prospective building for the Firestone on Empire in Bedford, I looked at the plans. They proposed to have parking. It's kind of funny with that because they've got more parking than apartment units. But no one is building Nehemiah in low-rise apartments because there's no money in that. There's no funding for low income. Now, my question is regards to the Black home ownership project. How is that being implemented in the various communities that you mentioned, Central Brooklyn, Southeast Queens, Bed-Stuy, where we're at? Are you at the stage where you're presenting to the housing committees of the community boards, or how does that work? And also, is there only one central office in Manhattan, or are there offices in each of the different locations where these challenges are taking place? So sorry to take up that much time.
You're totally fine. So to answer your first question, we are located in Manhattan on Broad Street. And we've been around since 2008. We've been in this particular office, I believe, for like the last 4 or 5 years. So we have one location. And we work with network partners across all 5 boroughs. So we have what we call as our homeowner hub, which they work directly with each network partner, depending on what the needs are. So we're working with groups like NHS of Jamaica, NHS of Brooklyn, Brooklyn Legal Services, et cetera, and so forth. So we are really partnering with our network partners. How are we implementing this into? So that's why I'm here tonight doing a presentation for you all, but you are one of many presentations that I have this month. So I'm speaking to different community boards, within Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Queens. Dante has been really great as far as getting the information that he needs so he can share with you all and your community members. So we would like to do more presentations like this, make announcements during your monthly meetings. I know that there's been a break over the summer, so I want to make sure that I got in here as soon as you were back so I could introduce myself and to see how I can work with you all and on future, if you have future events or things coming up, or if there are opportunities where we can do flyering or whatever the case may be, that's where we're at now. So those are some of the ways that we are trying to do our outreach, along with, again, partnering with our community partners.
So Randy, outside of us asking you to present, what is your ask? Do you have another ask?
I would say our main ask, and this is the conversation that Dante and I were having over the last few weeks, is again, we want to really, we want to put ourselves out there so you're aware that who we are and the types of services that we provide. And our ask would be, you can help us with the awareness portion of that. And because you are the ones in contact with the community, they're in contact with you. You know what their direct issues are. So if you can help us kind of identify who those individuals are and help point them in our direction, that would be very helpful.
Okay, we can do that. So with that, is there material that you can email to us that would make that easier and not require face-to-face?
Correct. So I've passed along flyers to Dante, which has information about the services that I mentioned during the presentation tonight, as well as contact information for our homeowner hub, which is basically a hotline that when homeowners call in, they can call directly to the hub, say, hey, I live in this community and I've seen a flyer that I received from Community Board 9. They'll go in, they'll create a profile, and they'll take that homeowner's information. And then within 2 to 3 business days, they can redirect that homeowner to whatever that particular service provider is that they may be in need of.
Okay. All right. So if no one else has any addition,
One more question.
oh yes, Janet.
Yeah, I'm still a little bit curious as to the funding for the Black Home Ownership Project, because what I'm hearing is that there would be a hub for homeowners to reach out to.
That's the name of our group.
The
name of our group is called It's a team within our organization. The homeowner hub, which is essentially a call.
Homeowner hubs. Okay, and you
Correct.
deal directly with homeowners and apartments too? Or
It's-
exclusively homeowners, since it is home ownership?
We are focused on homeownership. Now,
Okay.
I will say, we have with the Center of New York City neighborhood, there are different programs that you may pick up or come along the way that we work on. So right now, one of the programs is HAP, Homeowner Assistance Fund. So that's a whole program that's happening under our umbrella. I don't know any parts of that, but they have a particular focus, individuals that they're working with. when I started at the center, I started working with individuals who
Janice,
were.
hold on for a second. Janice, are you on two devices?
Sorry, I can't.
No,
Okay. Because someone is and is providing feedback.
Beverly, it looks
well, I,
like to me that you are on two devices. I don't know which one. It's
Yeah, I'm on two, but I only have audio on one.
okay. Okay.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead. Randy, go ahead.
Thank you. What I was saying is when I initially started at the center, I started working with a program that assisted individuals who were affected by Hurricane Sandy, which was a long time ago. When I started at the center, that was in 2017. Hurricane Sandy was 2012. So there were still people who were affected, who were still displaced without homes, homeowners and tenants. So in that particular program, yes, I did work with some tenants because they were displaced under individuals who had homes. So in that particular case, yes, I work with tenants. But for the most part, we really focus on home ownership and work with individuals who are homeowners.
and again, who funds your organization?
That's a really broad question because I'd have to give you a list of all our funders. I don't really know if that's going to answer your question, but I will say for our Black Homeowner Project, one of our funders for the Black Homeowner Project was JP Morgan Chase, one of our funders.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Given what they've been accused of so often. That's interesting.
Well,
Good to know, though. It's good to know.
it's public information.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any additional questions? No? So Mr. Reed, I want to thank you. First before we move on, please remember to forward the information so we can support you by way of passing this information forward. Because I'm sure even though we've seen you a couple times, there are people who are not aware of you, especially homeowners, because homeowners, Black homeowners in particular, homeowners of color also are being preyed upon for their property with the reliance that they don't know all the ins and outs that they need to know. And so their property is being consumed for personal gain outside of the family. So please make sure you pass that information to us so we can move that information forward. We want to thank you for coming and presenting.
Thank
Okay?
you very much. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening.
You
Thank
as
you,
well.
Dante.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Be well.
So everyone, we had the intentions of him just presenting for 20-25 minutes, and he presented for the majority of the meeting, but it still leaves us time to introduce ourselves to each other. And when we introduce ourselves to each other, could we also mention just in a short sentence of what we expect to get out of Housing Committee this year? Okay, so I'm gonna let you guys decide who wants to be first, unless you want me to pick someone. Okay.
Okay, you got me.
Thank you, Judy.
I'm Janice Granum. I am a homeowner, a longtime resident of this community and of Brooklyn, born and bred. I am very interested in making sure that our community has appropriate housing and services for all that are here. I am very much interested in maintaining a voice in the development and the building going on. I just read a disturbing report yesterday. It was very disturbing about the new recommendations to revise the state and city rezoning. So I want to be involved. I want to help out. I want to share information with my neighbors, and that's why I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Candace. Leslie, before you go, the recommendation was made by whom to whom?
I'm sorry.
The recommendation was made by whom to
Beverly?
yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we lost you.
That's okay, Leslie, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Leslie Farrar, and like Janice, I'm a long-term homeowner in Prospect Lefferts. I grew up on Long Island, but my parents were from East New York and Brownsville. And I'm also interested in the health and safety of the neighborhood and the provision of appropriate housing for all. You know, I was very interested in the presentation because on my block, I am getting, I'm getting calls and emails and texts from basically predatory people who want to either buy my house for cheap or I'm thinking steal the deed if they can every day. And I'm thinking, if I'm getting that, good heavens, what are my neighbors getting? So we want to make sure that people are, that homeowners are safe and secure in their home ownership, and again, that there are provisions to give them help in maintaining their homes and making the repairs and being able to stay in their homes and either eventually leave it to their children or sell it for a wonderful price and move to someplace warmer than New York City.
Okay. Next person.
Beverly, I just want to interject.
Yes,
You had asked about where did I see the report?
yes.
It's the Citizens Budget Commission report issued September 2022. And they're making new recommendations to revise the state and city rezoning, which includes a lot of things like removing community boards from even getting involved in building, as well as removing the environmental studies and no deference for, it's a long report. It's about 49 pages.
Wasn't that one of the suggestions that, you know what, Dante's right. Wasn't that one of the suggestions made by the current mayor?
That is correct. That is correct. But this, you'd have to see the budget. It's the Citizens Budget Commission report issued September 2020. And it is rather in-depth and detailed. And it's interesting. It's very disturbing, very disturbing. One last thing I just want to mention, I would like for this community to be a Newark community also. That's another reason I'm here.
Please explain.
A naturally occurring retirement community so that people can be 99 years old and still live in their homes safely. And Council Member Cornegay established his district over in Bed-Stuy as a Newark community. There are Newark communities all throughout the country.
Okay.
Dante might know about it, but I'm out. I don't want to usurp all the time, so I'm out. I'm
That's
here,
okay.
but I'm not speaking
Understand.
anymore.
I understand. Next speaker.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, finally, it's finally working. This is Lorianne Woolsley. I have lived in the community for about 15 or 16 years. I am a homeowner, but not in this neighborhood, in a neighborhood about adjacent. And what else? What do I hope to gain? Just knowing more about the rules and the regulations involved in housing. And as someone previously stated, I see that there are a lot of changes that is happening, and it's just amazing to me how these changes are affecting people who've been in the community for so many years. So I would love to know more and, if possible, do some work with people to help people remain in their homes. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Who hasn't spoken? Diane and Jay.
Diane, it's Diane.
Okay, Diane.
Okay, so Diane, I've lived in the community for approximately, I want to say 30 years, homeowner also, and I certainly have an interest in being on this committee because I've seen so many changes to the area. And I realized from listening today to the Black Ownership Project presentation, you know, that there are some things available to homeowners, because I always thought that things were always available to apartment dwellers. Nothing wrong with that. But I always thought that, because people tend to think that homeowners have equity and depending on the value of the home and all of that, they're usually locked out of everything. So for me, being a homeowner, I would be very interested in knowing what those changes are that would include me as a homeowner, where I would be able to benefit from things as well. I think that I'm also interested in some new things that are going on in the community that may or may not be affecting housing in the area. And I haven't heard much talk about it, but it's Airbnbs. I think we have many of them in the community, and I think that they would be a help maybe for people who are looking for, I'm not sure if it's just long-term, if it's just short-term, or if there can be long-term. I'm not exactly certain about that, because it's a whole lot of things pertaining to Airbnbs. So for me, it's more about affordable housing in the area, affordable and quality housing, I might add. All right. And I'm not sure if that's just for public housing or if it's for Section 8 or low-income housing. So I really don't know, because the median income in the area is probably needing to be changed. How it can be changed? Well, perhaps maybe when we all brainstorm, we might be able to add something to that, or even take away from the median income in terms of the current rules and regulations. And that's the reason why I'm here, and to offer whatever it is that I can offer to this committee. So that is my commitment.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Jay.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Sure. Hello. I used to live on I used to have a property at Schenectady Avenue back in 2015, and I was on the ULURP committee, the land use, when they were doing all the rezoning. So I had an interest. I made a lot of friends in the southeast part of Crown Heights, and I still have those friendships there. And I'm also the shul where I go to actually is by Kingsbrook Jewish. So I still have connections there. The reason I'm is because there's massive amounts of development in Southeast Crown Heights, where Kingsbrook Jewish is going to be redeveloped into massive housing, 322 units, commercial building on Utica. A 12-story apartment building is going to be right on Rutland. Most people don't know about it. And then there's the 900 apartments that are going on at Kingsborough West, which is by Winthrop and Albany. And the city, New York City, is doing this in a way in which it's shutting out the community. So they're doing this with a general plan, which means that the community boards don't have the power of ULURP to get involved and have their voices. And there's no reason that they couldn't have done it involving the community like they did with the Bedford Armory. So I see how the state works and how the city officials, even though they say that they're progressive, they basically shut out the community and they put on a show. So my idea is to try to get involved and to try to give the community more of a voice.
Okay. Is there anyone that's been overlooked? I think we got, Lorianne, you spoke, right? Yes. So, thank you everyone for introducing yourselves and expressing what you hope to see from Housing Committee this year. And I hope you will be a part in guiding that in making sure we stay on task, because housing isn't, and this is something someone asked early on, not today, but at another, when we did an orientation, they asked, what's housing for renters or what's housing for homeowners? In the city of New York, we have both. So we cannot be a fair housing committee on any community board and only represent one side. Yes, I live in a multiple family dwelling, but I have friends from all across, and I know people from all across. So I think people feel that multiple family dwelling, that renters have the floor, but I think it just feels that way because there's so many of us, and we have to come together and to keep things in perspective. Renters pretty much don't have any power in the brick and mortar in which they live. So in order to get their voices heard, they have to come together in a group. Homeowners, when they come together in the group, it's a lot smaller because, as they say, New York is a renter's place. But all of us can come together and support each other, because if one entity is lost, both entities are affected. And that is a fact, as we're seeing right now. When you have all of these market rate apartments in a community, you're looking at property taxes going up, you're looking at grocery stores going up, you're looking at all kinds of stuff cascade play out. So we are partners in this. All of us are. Homeowners, renters, all of us are. Now, someone spoke about Airbnb, and that is renting your room out for a room in your home out for vacationers is a good way for homeowners to bring up additional revenue. And some homeowners do it. Another way to do it is, I don't know if everyone's heard of, there's a program under Department of Aging. They are looking for seniors to partner with seniors, and for two reasons. One, there are seniors who don't have a place to stay on their own, and that helps. But I think the primary reason they're doing it is because many seniors are lonesome. You have seniors who their children have grown up and moved out, and they're in this big house that used to once be full, and that's now empty. And every now and then their grandkids come, but that's it. So Department of Aging has come up with this program, and it's been around for a while now, where seniors come together who have things in common. I like to crochet, I like to sew, I like to this or that. They find a senior who like to crochet, sew, or do creative or do crafts. So these are the kind of things that homeowners can use to supplement, to help pay their taxes, because most homes, for a large number of homes in New York City, they're already paid for. So they're just struggling to pay their taxes. We have a new generation coming along who's buying homes, but they're still working. But we have a group of retired homeowners who are looking for ways to help keep them afloat, to help them pay their taxes, where that are increasing as the years go by and the communities change. So I'm hoping that as leadership for for the housing committee, that we're able to be a good resource for both of those entities, for housing homeowners and for renters, because both of them are huge parts of New York City. Okay, so but at the same time, I understand that I am leadership, and that is all I am. I drive the train, but I don't decide what conversations are had on it. I don't decide what direction we go all the time. I'm just the final decision maker, and I hope everyone understands and appreciates that. Okay? Yes? No? Yeah?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
thank you.
Well said. Well said.
So we are now, it's 5 after 8. Is there anything else that people want to discuss before we separate? Because housing committee usually lasts to 8:30. We don't have to on our first meeting, but we can. So are there any other things that we want to discuss? Because we've introduced ourselves, we've heard our presenter, we've talked about what we like to see in housing. Anything else? Because we can talk about some of the topics that on people's mind, or we can take one and hash it out, take 30 minutes. Or are
Beverly,
we already tired?
I was going to say, if possible, you could set the stage for electing vice chair and secretary next meeting, so folks are, aware that they can actually serve in a leadership capacity.
Okay, sounds good. Janice, you have a question?
Oh, yes. You kind of took things out of my head already, which was what are some of the topics that are going to be focused on throughout the course of the housing? I know as far as I could see is the outreach to those who are struggling in their homes, as well as, again, as I said before, how to make this a NORC community, a naturally occurring retirement community, because the fact of the matter is people who own homes, a lot of them, they probably, even if their homes are paid, they can't really afford to go anywhere else.
Right.
And they need to, there needs to be an assurance of them knowing what services are available. I love the fact that you mentioned the Department of Aging with the seniors moving into the homes. I think that's an excellent thing. Maybe we could have a speaker talk about that. And also, how do you get more input, or how do you outreach to the people who need it? Flyers is nice and well. I think robocalls do wonders. And somehow the politicians always know how to make the robocalls when it's time for election. I get them all the time. You have seniors who are kind of wary about answering the door to people knocking on it. So that's old school. Flyers is old school. And I mean, it could still be done. Knocking on doors, people are terrorized, so to speak. I'm not, but I'm thinking robocall. I'm thinking we got to do new stuff to get to the people, because it doesn't mean anything if this information is just contained within the people right here on the committee. It has to get to the people. So I don't know how we do that. I know there was a fair last year, but
Right. So, okay, now I know my speaker. So
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, Crown Heights community, I've discovered that we have to do all of it, honestly, Janice. There are people who are not going to answer their doors for door knocking, and flyering for some of us is old school, but but flyering, but for many, for many, is the only way that you're going to get information to them. And we're in a time where we really have to use all of it. We have to use social media. We have to use flyering. We have to tell our neighbor via phone call. We have to use all of it because there are parts of our community in each section. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but so let me share with you what I do. For all of you in the room that don't know, I'm the president of the Ebbetsville Tenants Organization in Ebbetsville. There are 1,300 apartments. The average tenant moved here in his or her 20s. They are now 70 or 80 years old. Their grandchildren are coming to visit them. They have a smartphone because their grandchildren insisted on it. They didn't pick it out. They didn't pick it out. So they know how to look at the text, read it, not respond to it. And so that part of the community, I'm not able to do text blast to. I have to either call them, which is also a huge task, or make sure I have flyers on the board, on bulletin boards. Each building has a bulletin board. Some buildings have, one building has two. Then we have 30-somethings. I wouldn't say a whole lot of 20-somethings, but we have 30-somethings who are all in the tech. They have smartphones that they chose. And their smartphone can do everything, and they know how to do everything with it. Social media, all of that. So in addition to my putting the flyer on the board, my flyer has QR codes and links on it, because they don't have time to stand there and read it. They want to read it when they get upstairs. So the QR code is scannable. And it takes them directly to wherever they need to go. So I'm sharing all this with you guys. We are in a small community, and I'm just using Ebbetsville as an example, but this is Crown Heights in general. And this is to tell you, we want to reach everyone as many people as we can, like you said, Janice, because a lot of the people, it's not even because they don't want to, they can't go anyplace else. A lot of people love New York, and they want to stay here until God calls them home. You know, they love the accessibility. They love the resources that are here. They love it, but it's not senior friendly. Even though Scott Stringer one time said, New Yorkers are going to be able to age in place. The more free space that's created, the more difficult it is for New Yorkers to age in space. Why? Because that means buses are going to be stopping, bus stops are going to be further from their homes because of the free spaces. Not everybody wants to ride a bicycle all over town. Not even the 20 or the 30-somethings can do that if they break a leg, break a toe, break anything. Now they too are forced to be in transportation, whether it's an Uber, whether it's a bus, regardless of what it is, or a train. Now notice how difficult it is to take the subway. When you are taking the subway, think about on your route, on your daily route, how many subways have trains or escalators? Think about how unreliable Access-a-Ride is. So focusing on New York being a narc, as you say, that's something that we should be very vocal about. Because if we whisper it, no one's going to listen. Because New York currently it talks about seniors as a platform, but it doesn't really seem to be catering towards seniors. So in order for that to happen, we have to scream and not whisper. You understand? So that can be a house that we can do it from the perspective of housing. Because homeowners and renters, they both want the same thing when it comes to that, because renters are looking for parking spaces where they don't have to go up a whole bunch of stairs to get to their apartment or their building or their whatever. And homeowners want to be able to park in front of their homes, and they have every right to. But the parking is such that they're lucky to be able to park on their block, let alone be able to park in front of their home. So I think from a housing committee standpoint, that is something we can approach and we can scream about and bring other people's attention to it and identify someone who can present in front of us and educate us on what direction we should go. We can do that. And Janice, I'm thinking right now that if we do that, you're going to be the team leader. How about that? Yes? No?
Wait, for parking? Did you say for parking
No,
or for North?
for the NARC part. The NARC part.
The North?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I could find out a lot of information on that. I could get in touch with Robert Carnegie because they have it in Bed-Stuy. They have a.
That's a good place to start.
I could find out some information on that.
Okay.
I will do that.
Sounds great. And you can use that to educate.
You mean people don't know about it here?
I gotta admit, I have not heard the acronym before. I've heard the age place.
Oh, okay. They have them all over the country.
Yeah. Georgia is Georgia. That is really key on making communities senior friendly. I mean everything from activities, parks, gated communities. I mean, I'm impressed about some of the stuff that she's telling me about. I really am. So we're going to I'm going to dub you captain of that, right? And understand, this is not captain by yourself. This is captain with support. If there's something you need us to do, let us know. If there's something you need me to do, let me know.
Okay, I will seek out the information and research.
Sounds good.
And report back.
Sounds good. So someone else, an Airbnb. I don't remember who it was, but someone mentioned it. Do you remember mentioning it, someone?
That was me, Diane.
Okay. Could you expound on what you were thinking when you said that?
Okay, hold on one moment. Sorry. Okay, so Airbnbs. Well, actually, I was wondering, because I'm hearing a lot about Airbnbs, and I know that they are in the community.
They are.
So I really don't know too much about it other than, there are places where you can go, I believe, for housing. I'm not sure if they're long-term, short-term, or what the terms are, but usually I know that, okay, so I know that, that sometimes there are people who are in the community that need temporary housing, such as maybe even a homeowner or maybe an apartment building dweller who is getting their apartments and or their homes constructed for some reason, perhaps maybe for an emergency purpose, and then the person may need a place to go. So they do have availabilities of Airbnbs, but in this community, I don't know exactly how many there are, if they have to be registered, in the community board. I certainly believe that they have to be registered, I believe, with the city of New York. I'm not exactly certain.
So are you seeking information about them or?
Yes.
Okay.
Seeking information to disseminate for myself and to disseminate to others in the community.
Okay. No problem.
Yeah.
And someone was talking about zoning, and I think that someone was Jay. Jay, what did you want housing to focus on in regards to the zoning part? And before it's 20 after, and I want while we're doing this roundtable or pulling out potential topics for the upcoming season, I want you guys to think about who wants to be vice president or vice chair, and who would like to be secretary. Okay, so think about that. You don't have to make your mind up about that today, but at the next meeting we can discuss it. So Jay, back to you. You wanted to talk about, your topic had something to do with zoning.
Yeah, just to mention that, the zoning in the southeast part of Crown Heights is in part of the district is changing, and the community is not part of it. There's Kingsborough is land that
But
is.
Isn't that a state? Sorry to interrupt, Jay. Isn't that a state project?
Yes. So that there's not that much that people could do, because
Right.
it's state land, so it doesn't go through ULURP, because they say, number one, it's state, and then they say, number two, it's something called a UDAP, where it's a blighted area. So it's kind of, that's their justification. In my opinion.
So Jay, sorry to interrupt, but before, because we don't want to throw terms out and the members are lost. So one, elaborate on blighted, and two, tell the committee what's over there.
Kingsborough is, Kingsborough is the hospital. It's a
Right.
Kingsbrook is a huge hospital there. The hospital, wasn't doing so well, and it's part of I believe there's 3 different hospitals that are part of something called, I think, like a system there. It's like
Right.
Brookdale, I think, Interfaith, and Kingsbrook. So they made the decision what to do when the hospital's not doing well, instead of trying to bring in like new business where you can have new development and nurses and all that stuff. They said, okay, we're just going to do it with affordable housing. So that's what they're putting there. And it's going to be 322 new units. I think 85 of the units is going to be for like seniors. The rest of the units is going to be affordable housing, working class housing, sort of like
Doctors, nurses, people like that.
Right. The problem is that of the 322,
isn't there also
when you look at the
social
parking,
service going to be there too?
I saw that. Yeah, I saw when I looked
I
at
saw that
when
in the plans.
when I looked at when I looked at the secret, there was something that said, I think that there was something called like Catholic Charities or something, had some sort of social service in the downstairs portion. But as far as how it plays out with parking, the community over there, a lot of people were mentioning that it's overcrowded, and that there's too much development. This is the existing people who are there, and that they need traffic concerns and parking spot, because a lot of the people, it's more than like a half mile to the subway. So a lot of people there drive cars. So what's going to happen is the 322 units, it works out where 200 units are not going to have any parking spaces. So that's, you look around in the area is going to lose 200 units for parking spaces, number one. There's going to be buildings that are going to be 125 feet tall. The diagrams I saw on the internet, after researching a few different places, it's hard to get to, but there's 2 huge buildings. One is 125 feet. That looks like it's going to be a 12-story building. And it's right across from Harry Silver. So that's one aspect there that's coming. And then the massive thing is Kingsborough West, 900 units. And there's a question as to how much parking. So because the neighborhood is a transit zone where they basically, city planning said that they don't have to provide parking places there in like Southeast County. Yeah.
And remember, under what building or construction thing did they decide planning wasn't necessary? Let's everybody remember from a housing standpoint, we can go back to when de Blasio put MIH in front of every community
Yeah,
board.
yeah, the
So,
trend,
and this is part of the MIH plan where
That's
the
ex-
perception was people who need affordable housing do not need parking. So go ahead, Jay.
yeah, and just to add on that, the problem and the injustice of it is
Yeah,
that that by Kingsborough, by Kingsbrook, which is going to be around 322. And by the way, that represents half of the total project at Kingsbrook. So they're doing it in sections. The half of the development at Kingsbrook Jewish is 322 units plus commercial along Utica Avenue. There's a whole nother half that is going to be developed. In addition to that, then you have the 900 that's at Albany and Winthrop, 900 units. And then, you had the other issue where at 77 Rutland Road, Rutland and Schenectady, you had an organization which was going to combine the church there and build like a 12-story building for rentals, market rate rentals, and also the facility catering to homeless and drug addicts and stuff like that, mentally ill, etc. And there was in the ULURP committee, there was some pushback against it because they said, look, this is across from a daycare center, and the neighborhood is already oversaturated, and it's just there's a massive amount of buildings going in places where it's going to affect the existing community, and it's just
so Jay,
Yeah.
what you are going to be a captain of, you're going to talk about the housing component in Kingsbrook, because remember, Brian Cunningham was not the assembly member. Remember, this is a state project, everybody.
that's
And Brian
absolutely correct.
Cunningham was not the assembly member. Diana Richardson was the assembly member. And when this project came up and she created, I don't know if you guys will be able to find, and I can find one when I go home. She created a beautiful brochure that even her peers could use about that project and what the vision of it was. I can't remember what was the name. It wasn't called the Kingsborough Project, it's called something else. So from a housing standpoint, because that is Harry Silver and all of that is in Community Board 9, we can talk about the housing component of that. Who is it supposed to house? What is the salary level? And talk about the parking, why there's going to be a minimal amount of parking, just that whole project from the housing perspective. And we will support you on that as well, Jay. So we're not going to be doing that at the same meeting, just like we're not going to be doing that at the next meeting for Janice. But these are things that members of the committee, that they have a passion about. Engage with the rest of us so we can understand the passion, number one, and we can understand the project. Because it's important, New York is, someone mentioned that earlier, New York is diverse and it is changing. Some of us know what the changes that are occurring. Some of us are totally left out. But to get advocates have to be informed. And in order for us to be informed, you guys have to educate us. You understand what I'm saying, Jay and Janice? Jay's like, you gotta be kidding me.
No. I agree with you 100%. But the direction that the city is going for, it's where if you have a car, and if you
Right.
need a car to go different places, and if you're a family with more than a few people in it, I think that people are going to be
You're gonna have some
displaced
problems.
after Kingsbrook. I don't disagree with Kingsbrook Jewish that much. What's going on there? The problem is the Kingsborough West on Albany and Winthrop. The 900 homes, the 900 units is going to be a tidal wave, because there shouldn't be a parking requirement, because it's a transit zone. If you build affordable housing, you don't have to have parking. And that's what happened at 77 Rutland Road.
Right.
777 Rutland Road, the guy said, or the organization there said, we're not giving any parking.
Right,
to
'cause
any
they
of
don't
the
have to.
units, because it's a transit zone. So-
Right, they don't have to. And I don't know how many of us in the room have tried to get to that side of town using mass transit, But when you do that, it is a challenge if you don't drive. It's two buses, it's a train and two buses, or two buses alone. It depends, what you're trying to do. So it is now 8:30. We have definitely two topics that housing is going to be working on, and I'm kind of excited about it, really. So if other people in the room have topics that they have a passion about that fall under the housing umbrella, and understand, we are housing committee. We want to stay focused on educating housing, the community around housing, because not everybody's educated in that. And if there is something that you want people to know or advocate for, bring it up. Every meeting, there's going to be a section where we can talk about that. If you're a person who haven't already mentioned a topic and you have a topic that you have a passion for in regards to housing, like in all honesty, are you guys aware that there is a program that helps seniors with paying taxes on their homes? I hope most of you guys are homeowners. So if you are not aware, that's something we can talk about too, because some seniors are losing their homes because of the taxes. You understand? Are you guys under the impression that in the Department of Finance, there is a program similar to SCREE for homeowners? So those are some things that we can talk about in future meetings. We can educate each other and the community on. So this is going to be, housing is about advocacy, whether it's homeowners or apartment dwellers. It doesn't really matter. Housing is about advocacy. Advocacy brings on education. And when people are educated, they are empowered. There is no doubt about that. Okay, so are there any other questions before we adjourn?
Beverly, I do have one question I want to ask.
Yes,
I remember at one time we were going to do a tour of the apartments over here at the
Major
Armory.
Islands?
Yeah. Did that ever happen?
It hasn't happened yet. From what I understand, the lottery just closed September 18th, I think.
Well, it's going to close on that day.
Yeah, it's going to close.
Yeah.
Because they just had a webinar. It's going to close, but it hasn't been completed. The apartments haven't been completed. Unella is on the house. She chairs the housing committee for the Major Owens, and I chair the outreach. And so we keep plugging in to find out when the apartments are finished so we can do the tour. Soon as the apartments are finished, and thanks for reminding me of that, I'll reach out to them again tomorrow about it. Soon as the apartment is finished, we'll schedule Community Board Non-Housing Committee to go on a tour.
Yes, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, and I will put that on our future plans. We'll schedule the Housing Committee to go on a tour, because that is important. Even though a couple thousand people have applied for a couple hundred apartments, it's important that we see the size, because we are housing. It's important that we see the size, because that building has 3 bedrooms. The size of the apartment. What is being prioritized in not just that building, but the whole entire living quarters of that of the Major. Well, it's not even the Major Owens. It's the housing component is called, I can't remember. I have to get back to you on that, guys, because the housing component is named separately from the recreational facility. So the housing component of amenities are a priority. There is parking, but not a lot. And we know what that area is like over there. So from a housing perspective, we look at it, then when people ask us about it, we're able to respond from a knowledge standpoint. So yes, thank you, Diane, for reminding me about that. I will send an email and ask them, is there a deadline? Can they put us up there to do a tour? Because we were going to do a tour. Okay. Are there any other questions?
The arch.
Yeah. Thank you.
Arch. Mhm.
Let's call the arch. Thank you, Dante. So that's the housing component. So when you hear about when you hear the name the arch, know that that's not the recreational facility, because the recreational facility is the Major R. Owen Wellness and Health Community Center. MOHWCC is that. That is the recreational facility, and only the recreational and the medical, because the medical is going to be on the first floor at the end of the year. But the housing part is called the arch. Okay. And you'll be able to see the size of the rooms, what rooms are being offered, what amenities are being offered, and have a discussion with your friends, even though by the time we see them, they would have already probably been rented out or lottery. But it's an education, honestly, guys, it's an education. So, or is there anything else that you guys want to talk about this evening before we adjourn? Because we've had a full agenda this evening, and I hope you guys, the goal for every meeting, not just sometimes, the goal for every meeting is for us to leave with at least one pearl, at least one. And I hope everybody in the room had a pearl today. Okay, because we learned about Black homeowners, and this new organization is supposed to be supportive of Black homeowners and what we can do to help facilitate that. You know, all these things are important. So who would like to? I don't see any more questions. Okay, who would like to propose that we adjourn the meeting? Make a motion, sorry. I'm usually listening to that, going to respond, but no one wants to make a motion that we're going to adjourn the meeting. That means everyone wants to sit here all night.
I make the motion, Lorianne.
Hi, Lorianne. Thank you. Who would like to second the motion?
Second.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is Leslie, who's seconding the motion. Leslie, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your contribution to the meeting. A successful meeting is important for everyone to contribute. And Janice, you have a question?
I just want to say thank you for keeping the meeting to 8:30 and not 10 o'clock. And I'm hoping that in the future that can happen, because, you know, it does get to be kind of long-winded. I know sometimes it happens, but I appreciate sticking to the 8 o'clock / 8:30 time.
Well,
That's
housing is not as quite inundating or as consuming as the regular meeting. So I can't even say, we can't even compare the two really, because we have one topic where the main meeting has multiple topics. So it's kind of, if we stay focused on that and have a vision of where we want to go, we'll be able to be out of here at 8:30 at the latest, okay? So, but thanks for the reminder. I'll have to put a sticky note, Janice. Thank you, everybody. Second it, and have a good night, okay?
You too.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
You too.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank you.